Hey guys, welcome back to this week's poll here on Comic Relief Cast. I am your host, Jake.
And I'm Josh. Hey Jake, I got a quick question for you.
What?
Do you have any questions for me?
No.
What are we reading?
And guys, as you see by the title, there are all Marvel titles in the title of this episode, so you've clicked on the Marvel episode
How
for
many
this
more
week.
can you say titles in this intro?
Not enough. So what we're going over this week, or for this week's episode, is Journey into Unknown Worlds number 1, Age of Xman number 1, The Amazing Spider-Man number 14, Fight Club 3 number 1, Captain America number 7, Doctor Strange number 10, or 400 for the legacy number, Marvel Knights number 6, and Man Without Fear number 5. All right, getting straight into it. Journey into Unknown Worlds by Cullen Bunn, Chapman, Sanamana, and Lowridge. Sanamana. It wasn't on purpose. So basically what Marvel's been doing, they did it last week with a couple titles. They're reigniting some of their classic titles from way back in the day, back when they were still Timely comic books, or Timely Comics, and Journey into Unknown Worlds is their latest installment, and this is kind of their horror, mystery, sci-fi installation in the back in the day. So this is Journey into Unknown Worlds. It's a two-parter. There's a story in the beginning and a story in the back. I don't really like Cullen Bunn as a writer, but you do, so you say, he does pretty good on like the horror titles and stuff, so I figured, okay, I'll give this a read, see how I feel about Cullen Bunn writing horror stuff, and I'll say the first story in here is better than the second one for sure, but it's just too short. It didn't give me enough of anything to make me feel anything.
I think that's the problem with most of these books, and I think that's like one of the reasons why some of these like short story, like one and done type things don't really usually work. Cullen Bunn did the first story. The second story was Chapman. But like Cullen Bunn, it was actually a decent story, but it was just too short.
Yeah.
The second one, it was just too...
It was just goofy.
It was goofy. It was predictable. It was unoriginal in a way. Like you saw it coming from a mile away. But yeah, the one thing that's definitely a detriment to most of these kind of books, like what we said with like ones from like the War is Hell, the first story in War is Hell, is that these stories are just too short. You just don't get. You want to get a little bit more than what you're getting.
Yeah, I wish this issue would have just been solely devoted to the first issue written by Cullen Bunn. And while it is short and it's got some good imagery, it's got some creepy imagery in it. Mm-hmm. I will say that it does tackle an idea. It's got like this existential kind of philosophy behind it, where it's talking about a parasite and a host coming down, and this world is tumultuous to its existence. It can't live here and prosper here and breed here. And it was an interesting idea. I see what he was trying to do with it, kind of paralleling it with the human race. But ultimately, it fell a little short because it was so short. Just really wasn't my bag, but it was interesting, and it does have some cool ideas behind it. So because of that, I might try out something from Cullen Bunn. Like I know he does Harrow County, and I hear good things about that. But
yeah, when he does like his superhero stuff, Capes and Cows, I usually don't like it.
He is the ultimate chameleon writer.
Exactly.
For me.
And it feels very generic when it comes to the Capes and Cows, but when it comes to the horror stuff, the horror and like thrillers and stuff, he usually does a better job. Harrow County, I'm reading Empty Man, that's pretty good. And there's a couple of other titles that I've read that he's done.
Okay, well, and I'm going to change it up a bit. Josh, why don't you go ahead and give the this week's episode's rating system, and why don't you go ahead and rate it first?
All right, so this week's rating system for Marvel, since it is the anniversary of Doctor Strange.
Well, it's a landmark issue for Doctor Strange.
Well, and it's also an anniversary, too.
True.
But it's going to be Wongs, and I give this book 2 Wongs.
Okay, I'm not too far off. I'm at 1.8 Wongs. All right, and we're going to be moving on to The Amazing Spider-Man number 14.
It's by Spencer. We have a beautiful Otley cover, but the artwork is done by
Chris Bacalo.
Bacalo. Yeah. This book was it was interesting, but the thing is with Bacalo's work is he's one of those kind of artists where that artwork only works in some titles, and it just doesn't. And like I know he's done Spider-Man before, it just doesn't work for this one, and it becomes.
He also did Doctor Strange though by Jason Aaron.
Yeah, and I actually dig that. I thought that was one of the times where it kind of like it made purpose there. It does not really, especially with this storytelling. The story is very at home. It's very it's dealing with Peter and Mary Jane's relationship and how they are like becoming more friendly with like the Lizard, and it deals with a little bit with Aunt May and her situation that's going on right now, and it just doesn't kind of fit. It's a very at-home book, and his artwork is very like for a very eerie kind of look, And but we do get a little bit more tease into the Kraven the Hunter, which we know that's finally is coming up. But for the most part, it was kind of just like a bland issue. I feel like the artwork is probably, I wonder if it's partly the artwork that makes me kind of feel that way.
I do have a question. Does this at all, because I'm looking at the cover, it's got Rhino on it, makes me think Miles Morales Spider-Man. You bring up Aunt May, I kind of wonder Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Is there any intersection between those two titles, or is there any parallels?
Okay, there is the somewhat intersection, but it's more of just like a nod at the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man reveal at the end of that. But you find out that Aunt May it's a little bit, it's more rough for Aunt May than what we think just with just that. We get some more news that's kind of harsh for her. And also just kind of understanding of why Aunt May is a great character. The other thing is with Rhino, there's no mention of Miles, but there is kind of like this, you'll feel this like familiar, what's the word?
Familiarity?
Yeah, to it. I give this book 2.65 Wongs.
Okay. All right. Moving on to Age of Xman Alpha #1 by Nadler, Thompson, Rosanas, and Farrell. And so I actually, I kind of dropped off of Uncanny X-Men after issue 7, I believe. And so I thought, you know what I'm gonna pick this book up as someone who's kind of like a new reader. You know, you walk into the shop, you see a #1 with X-Men on it. Are you gonna pick it up? You know, I read it. I actually really dig the art in this book. I really like the line work and the pencils in this book, and the coloring's great too. What I liked about this book is that it basically what it's done is it's created a utopia for the mutants, right? Everybody's a mutant now. I didn't read issue 10, I didn't read the annual, I didn't read a few issues, so I don't know if that played out in Uncanny X-Men or if this is kind of a new thing. But so they've created a mutant utopia. It's kind of like Genosha, but the entire world. And so the X-Men are kind of celebrities. They're well known. They've got a school going where they bring in all the new kids, and it's kind of this nationally renowned school. But the thing that really bothered me about this book is that in like almost every other page there was a tease for the next series to come out. Oh, find out what's going on with Bishop in this series, and find out why people love Kurt Wagner in this series, and find out this in this series. And it's like it almost felt like a expensive advertisement for the next few X title series that are going to be coming out that are spinning off of this one. So it felt kind of like maybe the Marvel Legacy #1 when they put that book out, and it kind of was like setting up the chessboard, like, hey, this is where everybody's at. But if this was its own thing, it didn't keep distracting me with like, oh, this is coming out, find this out in this book, it really is it's nothing but a solicitation for future X books, and that did bother me. But if this was a kind of a self-contained thing, I'd like to know just what was happening in this series.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I would probably be a little bit more okay with that, like where they kept introducing the other ones, if this was like Marvel Legacy, where Marvel Legacy was just a one-shot issue and it branches off to all the other ones. But this is actually an ongoing series that we know of, and it distracts you, especially when you're trying to pay attention to the series. The transition from Uncanny X-Men #10 to this, I thought it was a little kind of brass, because like for most, if you're reading that, this kind of, I feel like it just kind of like boom, it hit you. Like there was no transition. It just went boom to boom. And I mean, the pencil works, I do enjoy them. And the coloring, it was definitely different, and it kind of reminds you of like old school comics in a way. But story-wise, it wasn't too bad. I don't know, the whole Age of X-Men thing is it's bugging me, especially when you do see how many different titles this is branching out to, and you're going, this is coming off of a 10,
and each one of those is going to be ongoing. It's going to be a limited series,
issues.
Right?
Yeah, but on a limited series of like 5 issues, that's a massive investment for an end of an event that I felt, personally, that was a very rushed, very easy ending.
Yeah, well, not only that too, but
typical. It's just what it does. What this is, what I feel like all these Age of X-Men books are going to end up doing is exactly what X-Men is. It's just making X-Men more convoluted than what it's like ever been.
Right. I feel like they're really stepping on the point of what their original kind of goal was, which was to condense the X-Men universe, make it simple and easy for new readers to jump on, and they just can't seem to help themselves, and they want to just branch out and everything because they want to make sure every character gets the spotlight in some way, shape, or form. And I don't particularly want or need that. There's a lot of mutant characters out there that I couldn't give two shits about. So that does bother me. And I will say, as somebody who feels like kind of a new reader, I read the first 6 or 7 issues of Uncanny, that I don't feel like if you were to just pick this up off the shelf that you would know what's going on. You would feel like you missed a lot of shit. And the other thing too is we were talking about all these different miniseries spinning off. Uncanny X-Men is also going to keep going. It's going to have issue 11, 12, 13.
Which I feel like is going to probably have the better storyline after following that Uncanny annual.
Yeah, so it does bother me that they're like, hey, let's get as much money as we can. If you're getting one of these, you're not going to understand what's going on if you're not getting all of them, because you went from Uncanny X-Men, which is one title, because gold, blue, red, astonishing, everything ended just to Uncanny. Then Uncanny is just like, fireworks just everywhere. And so what was just Uncanny X-Men has now become a 25 to 30 book investment just to keep up with the X-Men universe, and I think that's kind of a shitty way of going about things. So taking all of that into consideration, I'm going to give this book 2.7 Wongs.
I'm actually right there with you, 2.7. I mean, the story was still interesting. The whole situation kind of bugs me a little bit.
You just couldn't help but in the back of your mind feel like this is just a cash grab.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, moving on to Fight Club 3, number 1 by Chuck Palahniuk and Cameron Stewart. And this one's going to be a quick one to go over, guys, because there is really not a lot of reading to be had in this book.
It's more visual than it is reading-wise.
It's a very visual story. And I also didn't read Fight Club number 2, so I'm kind of jumping into this pretty fresh and new.
I like that, because then I get to see what your input is on this.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened in Fight Club 2. Obviously, I've read the Fight Club book, I've seen the movie, but I didn't read Fight Club 2. And so walking into this, it's very jarring. It's very abrupt. There's a lot of stuff happening that you really don't have any, basis for to just kind of go, okay, this is where they're starting and this is where the story is going. I know that the Tyler Durden character is a part of this, and his alias, I forget Edward Norton's name in that book for the life, I can't remember.
Tyler Durden.
Is that his? Is it?
Yeah,
I thought he had another name.
Well, they call him narrator. If you look at casting and stuff, they call him narrator.
Okay.
But yeah, they're both Tyler Durden.
Okay, so
that's spoilers.
Yeah, there's things going on in this book. There's paintings. There's a calendar. There's people at an art gallery. I really don't know. There's
Tyler Durden's at a
job interview.
Yeah.
There's also something going on with a dog. There's a bunch of flies everywhere. I mean, visually it's very interesting, but for the life of me, I cannot gather what the hell the story is about.
Well, it's definitely more of just like a tension grab kind of book for people who have read number 2. I don't really remember number 2 because it's been a while since that one came out.
It's been at least 4 years.
Yeah, I've been meaning to reread it before this. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely for a new reader coming into this. I feel like you're going to be really confused, but at the same time, you're going to visually enjoy this, and you're going to be intrigued to kind of go, okay, what the hell?
Yeah,
and you might be a little bit intrigued to go back and pick up Fight Club 2, especially if you're a Fight Club fan.
Right. Yeah. Visually, it's very interesting to look at. It's on some really nice cardstock paper too. It's on that really high gloss cardstock. Pencils are great. The cover's great. There's multiple variants out there, so
this is David Mack. You got 2 David Mack covers.
Yeah, and it's a traditional $3.99 price, so it's not a bad book. It's definitely not a bad looking book, but for the life of me, I just can't figure out what the hell the story is. But again, it is just the first issue. This is kind of Palahniuk's thing. He is a shock value type of writer, so I'm gonna definitely follow this, see where it goes, but I don't feel any inclination personally to pick up this issue, but I wouldn't blame anybody who wanted to get it.
To any of our regulars that had come into the shop, we do have the Fight Club 2 in trade.
That's true. So what would you give that? What would you rate it?
As a person that did read Fight Club 2, there wasn't a whole lot to this to kind of grab you on it, but it visually was entertaining. I am kind of intrigued to see where this is going. I'm gonna give it a solid 2.95. I'll go 3.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a very generic meat and potatoes, right down the middle, 2.5 Wongs, because I really couldn't make heads or tails, so I couldn't say this is bad or this is good.
I feel bad for you. I thought it was gonna give you a little bit, at least a description of what happened in the last set, but
yeah. All right, I'm gonna move on to Captain America number 7 by Ta-Nehisi Coates and Adam Kubert. Kind of sad to see Lionel Francis go off of the first 6 issues, but this is starting of a new arc, Captain of Nothing Part 1. And so this is not a good jumping on point for anybody who hasn't read the first 6 issues. This is not something I'd say, oh yeah, you can pick it up here and you'll figure it out. So it's definitely is very strong ties to the first arc. and Cap is basically on the hook for the murder of Thaddeus Ross, or Thunderbolt Ross. And so, it's also carrying baggage from back in his days when he was Nomad, back when he was the captain, back during Civil War, the Registration Act, all that stuff. All of that stuff is kind of coming to a head in this book, and he's basically turning himself in for the murder of Thunderbolt Ross, which he did not do. But what I really enjoy about this book is Ta-Nehisi Coates. He's making commentary on the state of the U.S. right now, as far as the political world stage, and kind of where our position is, and Captain America, kind of his position being a metaphor for that. The ending of this book I thought was a little bit not what I want. I'm really hoping that what's introduced towards the end doesn't play a huge factor going forward. But the other thing Ta-Nehisi Coates does really well is he doesn't just write Cap really well. It's his supporting cast. He does a really good job of fleshing out and getting an idea of how they feel about Cap and their worldview as well. So with that, I'm going to give this book 3.2 Wongs. It's a good addition to the series, but it's not my favorite issue.
Okay, so I read Doctor Strange number 10, R400. It's a big book. I mean, you're paying a good $5.99, and you're getting a decent chunk. And you got about three? Sorry, guys. Yeah, you're getting 4. You get 4 different stories. The first story is continuing off, and they're all written by Mark Waid. The first story is continuing off of the actual series, and that's the main reason why I was wanting to read this. Is 400. Is this something that you can pick up and then start on from here? And the answer is yes. There is some stuff that you're going to be missing from the first 9 issues, but this would be a good starting on point. It's definitely a beginning of an arc. They do a good job of explaining things that kind of happened in there that are key points that you would want to know for this. There's a reason why I don't pick up Doctor Strange, and this is it. It's not that it's a bad story. It's not that it's a bad run or anything. I know a lot of people really do like it. It's just not for me. This was actually a pretty interesting one. I do like the new suit and everything. The second story is actually following Doctor Strange doing a house call, but it's just like him just solving one little case kind of thing. The third story is like an old school story, or it's telling the story of Doctor Strange when he's first being taught by the Ancient One. And the last story is actually one that's following Nightmare. They're all pretty good. Just like I said, the Doctor Strange, Waid on Strange, is just not my cup of tea. But it is a landmark issue, and I do suggest people picking it up. And you do get a decent chunk. And there's some great covers. There's a Quesada variant, and there's a Frank Miller variant. But yeah, I give this book probably 2.5. But once again, I think that my Doctor Strange regulars that really like the series would probably go a little bit higher on it.
All right, going on to Marvel Knights number 6 by Donny Cates, Jacinto Foreman, Friend, and Milla. And this is the end of the Marvel Knights miniseries, Marvel Knights 20th year anniversary. And I am not going to lie to you guys, I'm very disappointed with the way this all wrapped up. I think, Josh, the way you were talking was, at one point or another, Donny Cates is going to have a swing and a miss. Now, I know he didn't write issues 2 through 5, but this whole series, in my opinion, just kind of amounts to nothing. Nothing really happened in this book. This whole thing is, our minds are wiped. How do we figure out who we are? Who wiped our minds? All this. When you get all the answers, it's really not satisfying. And especially the way it all concludes, you just go, I really picked up these 6 issues for nothing, because I don't see the way this is going to play out in any future series. I don't see any repercussions coming out of this. It's a very isolated story that really has no consequences. And that really bummed me out, because I really like the lineup. I really like the creative team on the book. I really like bringing in Wilson Fisk and Dr. Doom. Spoilers, Dr. Doom really has nothing to do with this book in any way. And that, as a huge Dr. Doom fan, really bummed me out. But the ultimate villain in this book isn't any of the bad guys. It isn't any of the good guys. There is no villain. I can see in some vague, really obscure way that this is making it's got some commentary on comic books, and do the good guys breed the bad guys, and if the good guys stop being good guys, or the bad guys stop being bad guys. I think that's kind of the overall theme here, but it doesn't work, and it doesn't hit. It doesn't land in any meaningful way. And I gotta say, this whole series as a whole bummed me out. The best thing to come out of it is all the connecting covers that I got.
Yeah, it was definitely a letdown. Marvel's definitely been putting out these events lately that end up, when you get to the end, it actually is kind of a letdown, and you kind of feel like, what was the point in this? This one probably wasn't as bad as like Infinity Wars and like Spider-Geddon, but it was a big bum. I mean, like, one, you don't, like, you kind of like are left wondering, is this even canon? And like you also kind of wonder like what was the point in this whole thing, because it doesn't really have a point, doesn't serve a purpose. I mean, I am kind of pumped that I was right, but you know, whatever.
I don't know if you were right in the sense that you think you were right, but
there's just I have one big bum, but I don't want to talk about it about it in this podcast because it's a spoiler. But there is one thing that really does bum me out a little bit, because if you're going to do something, then I don't understand why you don't try to make it canon with at least something.
Right.
Yeah. But, I mean, for the most part, the series in whole, like, everything leading up to this was, except for, like, issue 5, was actually really good, and then it just kind of fell off.
Yeah, so for this issue, I'm going to give it 2.2 Wongs. The overall Marvel Knights 6-issue thing, I think it started off really strong, but by issue 5, where I feel like we still didn't understand who the villain was, who are the bad guys, what is the story, the overall series with the way it starts, the way it ends, I gotta give it just 3 Wongs.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This issue in itself, I give it about 2.2, and the event as a whole, even though it does drop off, I do give it about a 3. I mean, I think that's an honest rating for this series.
And believe me, guys, I wanted to give it higher because
I wanted it to
I really like those
good.
first couple issues. All right, moving on to the last one by Jed MacKay, Bayruth, and Massa, Man Without Fear, number 5. Now, this is another little mini series that is coming to an end. And it's basically after the end of Daredevil, or quote-unquote the death of Daredevil, and he's been in his deathbed, or he's been in the hospital, and all the people are coming to this hospital to meet him, and he's kind of going through these stages of grief for himself and for his alias of Daredevil. You know, he's got Foggy coming in, he's got, not Karen, I can't remember the woman's name right now. He's got Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Luke Cage.
The new Defenders.
Wilson Fisk, and all these characters who are coming in to visit him in the hospital while he just feels so defeated and he's down on himself. He's not going to be Daredevil anymore. This series, and I'm surprised you're saying this because I hated Jed MacKay's Prelude to
Edge of Spider-Geddon.
Edge of Spider-Geddon, that was it. I hated his issues in there.
There's a lot of stuff that we've reviewed by him that we did not enjoy.
Yeah, but this, I have to say, guys, this is great. This is an absolute must pick up if you ask me. This is going to be leading into a new Daredevil series and a Man No Fear, K-N-O-W Fear. I don't want to speak too much about what happens specifically in this book, but it's a great issue, and you know, to see Matt, you know, this idea, this theme of fear has been dripping.
Embodiment of fear.
Yeah, it's been dripping from every issue, and you know, he just letting the fear get him down, and how fear is pain, and you know, this is kind of his arc and how he rises above that fear, how he uses it, how he overcomes that pain, and how he uses the pain as well. And I think it's just a great introspection and character piece into the mind of Matt Murdock, and I can't recommend it enough for any Daredevil fans. Even if you're not a Daredevil fan, I think there's something in here for every comic book lover.
Yeah, take note. This is how you do like a mini series or an event. Like you have it end on a good note, a solid, strong note, and you keep it consistently good. But the other thing too is you also make it canon. And this goes for not just because I'm talking about because of what we said about Marvel Knights, but this also goes for like Spider-Geddon. This goes for Infinity Wars. This goes for even DC stuff. It's not just Marvel. It's like failing on some of the events. DC had Drowned Earth and Man Without Steel, Man of Steel. Yeah. But Man Without Fear has been consistently good, and it's been a weekly title. And usually weekly titles is a rough thing to kind of do, and yeah, it's been really good, and I love the idea, and it was definitely taking Matt Murdock to a place where we've never seen him, even though it's kind of like weird that we haven't really seen him.
It almost seems like an obvious place to take him.
Yeah, exactly. Like you kind of feel like this should have been told a long time ago, like Frank Miller's run or something, but this is actually, it was a really interesting way of looking at things, and it was definitely like a big psychological thing for Matt Murdock.
Yeah, not only that, I mean, there's some of the imagery in here is very like horror-like and grotesque, and I like that. I like that you're mixing all these things. I mean, this is very much a story that is happening with the inner turmoil in Matt. You know, it's all happening internally and manifesting itself externally. Really great book. This is not an action piece by any means. This is something that is just, you're going to get to know Daredevil. You're going to get to know the character of Matt Murdock, what makes him tick, what are his fears, what are his worries, what are his aspirations, things like that. It's a great book. I can't recommend it enough. If you guys have not been able to get it in all 5 issues, track them down. If you can't, I'm sure there'll be a trade. I think this is an absolute must-read. My favorite issue of the Marvel stuff. We haven't read everything so far. We've still got a few issues I need to read, but this has been my favorite for this episode, and I'm going to give this issue 3.6 Wongs, and the overall series I'm actually going to give 4.1 Wongs.
Okay. I actually give this issue 3.7 Wongs, and I'm actually at 4.1 with you on the whole series as a whole.
All right, guys. Well, that is all we've got for you for this episode. We appreciate you so much for listening this far with us. If you're already here with us and you guys have listened this long, we do appreciate it. Please hit that like button, or if you don't agree with anything that we said, hit that dislike button. Comment below and let us know what your guys' thoughts are on any of these books, anything that we did or did not cover. Let's have that conversation below. Share this video with your comic book reading friends, and of course, subscribe to the channel for early weekly comic book reviews every week for Marvel, DC, and some indie stuff that we try and cover. And that is all we've got for you. We will see you next week.
What is pain for?